Another week and still no KeithLee. Let's get to this first story here. What is KeithLee talking about? KeithLee has been missing from Raw since the middle of February, right around the time he was pulled from the United States Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2021. There was word going around in late March that Lee's absence was related to his health and he was trying to get cleared for a return. Lee himself spoke on Twitter about his eventual return, but didn't offer any specifics about his current situation. Before that, he appeared on an episode of WWE Watch Along for NXT TakeOver, Stand and Deliver. There really hasn't been any updates on Lee's status over the last few weeks, but he did send out the following tweet yesterday. Today's a day that can and will define the future. The wheels can have motion and move forward, or they can stop completely. Make your wheels turn, accept no substitute. He followed up by posting this picture right here of him at NXT War Games. And it's not clear what any of this stuff means and what's the story with KeithLee. He hasn't really opened up too much about what's been going on with him in terms of his health, why he's been off of TV for such a long time, and when he plans on returning to WWE television. Now, this is ever since pretty much he came up to Monday Night Raw. He had a little bit of a run, disappeared entirely after that match at Legends Night for the championship against Drew McIntyre. He seemed to be a favorite going into the Royal Rumble, but didn't even compete there. And then we didn't see him much after that. He was supposed to be in the United States Championship match, like I said, at Elimination Chamber 2021. That didn't happen, and we haven't seen him since. Mia Yim was around in Retribution. Now, she's been delayed her debut on SmackDown since Retribution broke up. So, both parties involved haven't been seen. Nobody really knows what's going on with KeithLee. All we can do is play the waiting game right now and see when KeithLee comes back, and eventually find out what the hell the reason was for him not being on TV for such a long time. Let's get to this next story here. Damian Priest was told he would be done if Bad Bunny angle failed. So Damian Priest sat down with Sports News Australia to discuss his current run. Priest has been thrust into a lot of big spots since being called up to the main roster, including teaming with international celebrity Bad Bunny at WrestleMania 37. And his confidence has grown due to the trust WWE has shown in him. Yes, it gives me confidence. It goes both ways. I can put it in all the work I want, but obviously I also need the company to believe in me and have my back. A lot of people were honest with me and they told me, listen, you can't blow this because if you do, you're done. All I said was, you're giving me the opportunity. I'm going to do everything to my abilities to knock it out of the park. I knew I had put in the work, so give me the opportunity and I will do my end. It goes both ways. And I think we both delivered, so we brought our audience a product worthy of them being entertained and being happy to watch. It's interesting. He's gotten such a big spot there at WrestleMania, obviously with Bad Bunny and that whole angle, that they told him, if you mess this up, it's over, which is pretty wild to hear. They were giving him kind of like a short leash there because it's obviously a massive multi-mainstream media match and angle that he needed to deliver on all fronts, him and Bad Bunny. And if, case in point, if there was a botch or a big mess up or the match just came off really, really bad and embarrassing, yeah, we wouldn't be talking about KeithLee right now going into WrestleMania Backlash, taking on The Miz, probably to win that feud out or being spotlighted so much on Monday Night Raw since that Bad Bunny match that, you know, at least he knocked out of the park. So did Bad Bunny. So that all the pressure that was on him probably going into that match was probably a lot. It's interesting to see who was the person that kind of said that to him. Was it Triple H? Was it somebody, somebody from Talent Relations? Was it Vince McMahon? Who was it that told him this? Was it Bruce Pritchard? But it's an interesting fact that they put so much pressure on him, and a guy who's only been in the company for such a short amount of time, an NXT guy who obviously has previous experience in the indies but coming in from NXT, giving him a spot this big that he needed to perform completely. If not, he would have been absolutely done. Next thing here, Bayley calls out the Bella Twins for embarrassing her at WrestleMania. So yesterday I talked about Bayley and Eva Marie. Now it's Bayley and the Bella Twins, because remember from WrestleMania 37, the Bella Twins were there and they beat up and embarrassed Bayley. So she was on the bump. She was on the bump this morning. This is what she had to say. You know how many videos that I had to see after WrestleMania, people adding music to that role? You know how embarrassing that was? You hear those fans booing in the crowd? That's right. That's because it was ridiculous. So Bella Twins, this won't be the last time that we see each other, because you embarrassed me in one of the hardest weekends of my life. You embarrassed me and put a little salt in the wound. So I'm not going to forget that. Bella Twins, yeah, I'm calling both of you out. Nikki and Brie have yet to respond to this. Bayley kind of going out there. She's already setting up a match with Eva Marie, calling her out. And now she's calling out the Bella Twins, who have been rumored to come back in either a creative role or a tag team role to kind of spice up that women's tag team division that's been so lackluster and poorly booked. Could they come back? Yeah, they definitely could. And could they face Bayley? I mean, it'd probably be a big marquee matchup to do. Maybe Bayley and somebody else in a tag team format going against the Bella Twins would make a lot of sense. Put a lot more eyeballs on the women's tag division, maybe elevate that division to a spot where it probably should be, where it's obviously definitely not, right now. So Bayley calling out the Bella Twins, calling out Eva Marie. She's getting really, really active out there, setting up her own kind of feuds and angles to see if WWE can get, if they can get traction, WWE will push them, right? Because they have they keep their ear to the ground when it comes to social media stuff and what their wrestlers say and do. So if they can set up a feud that makes money and logistically works out, they will do it. So we could see that go on in the future. Bayley versus one of the Bella Twins, probably most likely Nikki, unless they do a Nikki and Brie tag team run and Bayley is there with another tag team partner and maybe put the tag team titles involved in that. We could see a lot of different matchups and different ways they can work it. But again, if it's going to make money, Vince McMahon is going to do it. Let's get to this next story here, and it's about Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream was spotted in the backstage at Monday Night Raw this past Monday. Now it says here that Velveteen Dream was not at Monday's Raw for any kind of brand creative plans, but he was backstage at Monday Night Raw in Tampa. There's reports that he was never actually supposed to show up or appear at Monday Night Raw, but he was backstage for a certain reason. We don't know why, but we haven't seen him on NXT television since losing to Adam Cole on the December 23rd episode of NXT. So Velveteen Dream got a lot of baggage, a lot of issues, a lot of stuff outside the ring that he's gotten in trouble for, so he's been taken completely off of television. You remember he was in the big Adam Cole match, back in the summer where he was fighting for the NXT championship. Felt like he was going to finally win that title, but all the stuff came out about him, that whatever antics he was doing outside of the ring, and it's obviously soured his career and kind of brought the trajectory of his career down a lot. Now, he was there at Monday Night Raw in the backstage. Who knows for what? Maybe to find out exactly what they're going to do with him. Maybe that was the meeting he was having, maybe with Vince McMahon or somebody in talent relations, explaining to him what they're going to do with him in the future, whether he's going to stay with the company or if maybe his status currently as to when he might come back and what they're planning for him when to come back and how to treat him when he comes back and how they're going to present him when he does come back, maybe after some stuff subsides and he doesn't have as much heat on him as he did previous. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Velveteen Dream going forward from him showing up on Monday Night Raw this past Monday. Will be interesting how that's going to work out when he comes back, and if he even does come back, there could be future endeavoring him later this week. We don't know. But again, he was at backstage at Monday Night Raw. Let's get to this next and final story here, and everybody's favorite, Blood and Guts. Chris Jericho responds to criticism of his big Blood and Guts bump. Here in this interview, Jericho went into detail about the stage, about how the stage was prepared and the preparation that was done to make sure everything was safe as possible. So early in the day, when they were kind of building everything, actually the day before, they had a big giant air mattress that was probably, a big yellow mattress that was about 10 feet high, let's say. And I was thinking, wow, that looks like a pretty easy thing to fall on. Maybe they're just going to go out there and put a sheet over it or whatever the hell they're going to do. So Sammy Guevara was falling into it from the cage, and they're like, do you want to try it? I'm like, no, I don't want to try it. I'll just save it for later. And it turns out that was one of the things where like, well, you're not going to be falling into that. We were just testing that for the trajectory of how the body is going to fall and try and figure out where we want to put the actual apparatus that they're going to fall into. And I'll expose it. I'll tell you guys right now what it was. It was black gym mats that was about, I'd say, 6 foot high. That was at the bottom, and then there was a bunch of cardboard boxes. That's right, empty cardboard boxes. I'm like, are going to fill these things with anything? They're like, no, just empty cardboard boxes. That's what professional stuntmen fall on. Jericho would also reveal that actual stuntman was there testing the fall as well. And then Jericho pointing out that the stuntman was also wearing a helmet, something that he would not have the privilege to be wearing for the actual bump. When we were fighting on top of the cage and Sammy surrenders and then the bell rings, the music plays, and then Max kind of pulls me up again and then gives a little shove, Jericho described. I said, give me a shot. I need something to feel so I can take a little bit off pushback. And I stepped back and I thought this bump would go by fast, but I just kept looking at him and looking at him and looking at him as I fell. And then I landed, and of course it takes the breath out of you. Trust me, I've seen a few people bagging on the fact that there was a crash pad. Once again, no crash pad. It was a cardboard box. I don't give a S if it was a crash pad. It's one of those things. We're doing that. I mean, are we qualified to be stuntmen? I don't know. I never went to stuntman school, but just 30 years of being in the business, and you just go for it. You just absolutely put your caution to the wind and go for it. And it felt great. Obviously it hurts. You're paying the price, but I could move my arms and legs. I wasn't dead or knocked out. You talk about the live reaction and the people watching at home. And I was like, this is great. What a perfect finish for this. And it took the wind completely out of the sails of the crowd. They just went completely silent. And I just laid there until they basically took me away on a stretcher. And when they took me away on a stretcher, people started clapping like when someone gets hurt on a football field and they finally pick the guy up and take him off the field and everybody starts clapping. That's what happened. The people were believing and buying into it, as was I. And it was only later I started hearing, oh, people thought the fall was on a crash pad and it didn't look great. And for me, I watched it back. I thought it looked amazing. And the thing that was really scary is that if you watch it back, I barely missed hitting my head on the lights at the back of the stage. I went so far back that I almost overshot everything. So once again, everybody in the business knows how dangerous this can be, how terrifying it is, and just the margin of error is so slim. There's some hardcore wrestling fans that were bagging on it. That's fine. I mean, you have the right to bag on it. And out of the 1.3 million people that watched, if 3,000 people didn't like it, that's a very small percentage. Most people just thought it was crazy, as did I. Once again, I've got very thick skin, and it really doesn't bother me if people didn't like something because we move on to the next week. But once again, everybody has opinions, and I appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. But for me, I always go back to what did I think about it? How do I feel about it? And what I watched it back, man. I was like, this is absolutely insane. It's terrifying. It's a little bit exhilarating, but it's one of those things that I hope you enjoyed it because you'll never see me do it ever again. Okay, so Chris Jericho, obviously coming out, he was a fan of it. I mean, he did it. Is he really going to bag on something that he did? Now, the problem, again, is not the bump itself. It's the production of it, the way it was put together. If it's all cardboard boxes, wasn't a crash pad, okay, but it still didn't look right. There's something off about the way it all looked. The thing he landed on, the little composite wood with the little sheet metal on top that really didn't look all that great. The camera angle and all that. Just too much shot that and made it look worse than it actually was. It's obviously a big bump. It's not the bump again. It's the production of it and the production behind it. Just the way it comes off looks. You know, I recently did a Backlash 07 retro review on my channel. Check that one out. But in there, it's Batista versus The Undertaker in a Last Man Standing match. Now, you do a big spot where they both fall through a piece of the stage and there's an explosion, these big truss fall. Now, the way it was shot, the way it was put together, the way the big metal truss fall was perfectly done. So it would hide the kind of magic behind it, let's say. So you were able to shoot it differently. And then once you look at those other camera angles, you see, okay, it looks fine. Let's show those replays of other camera angles. Here, they should have shown a far away or kind of a different look to it. Maybe shot it from the top behind Chris Jericho. And you just see Chris Jericho kind of fall. You don't really see the bump too much. And then you look at the camera angles. Does it look right? And then you show the replays after that. But Chris Jericho gives his opinion. I wasn't a fan of the production of the bump. Not the bump itself, but the way the production and the actual thing he fell on kind of looked in the end. And those are the problems mostly everybody has. But Chris Jericho's obviously going to defend his own work. I mean, he's probably his own biggest critic. But at this point, he's obviously the one who took the big fall. I think it's more the production that everybody's upset about. But tonight's AEW Dynamite, let's see how they address this. Is Chris Jericho going to be on the show? Is he going to be okay? How is he going to play up the injury angle and all that stuff like that? So it should be interesting to see how tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite works out after last week's Blood and Guts, you know, big thing that went down with the big bump and everything like that. But guys, that's the wrestling news and rumors for today, May 12th, 2021. Make sure you tune in tonight after Dynamite for our review and reaction to AEW Dynamite. And tomorrow, 7:30 p.m., wrestling news and rumors for Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Make sure you drop a like on this video. Make sure you hit the chair in the corner and sub to the channel, notification bells. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.